Hi.
I'm Tamika Washington. You're Miss Milanis, correct?
Yes.
Is it okay if I call you Tawana?
That's okay.
Okay. Well, Tawana, as an assignment for my schoolwork at New England College Online, I have to do an interview on someone whose story I admire. And I admire your story as a teacher. So, again, the purpose of this interview is to just document your story, get some of your personal experiences as a teacher. I really admire your profession, and I think it's one of the most selfless professions on earth. So that's my purpose, to bring a heightened awareness to what it is that teachers do, especially those in middle school. So first I'll start with just some general questions. The interview should take about 15 minutes at the most. Do you have time right now to complete the interview? Okay, great. So again, just some general questions. How long have you been a teacher?
19 years.
19 years.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to teach?
I've been wanting to be a teacher since I was a kid. I love kids. I've always loved kids. So before I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. And then I wanted to be a counselor. So, but I knew I always wanted to work with kids. So,
you actually answered my next question. I was going to ask you if that was always your profession of choice.
It was my number one. I knew I had a plan since I was a kid what I wanted to do, and I knew if basketball didn't work out, then I wanted to teach, and so it was kind of like something I always wanted to do. I had a lot of teachers who influenced me.
Would you say that it was truly just an afterthought, or something that was in your heart?
Being a teacher? Oh no, that was something that was in my heart. I think that's what I was meant to do.
Do you teach in private or public school?
Public.
Public school. Okay. So that'll bring me to my next topic, and that's just to document some of your experiences as a teacher. Do you feel that there's a difference in the way school is today from the time when you were actually a student and had a teacher?
Mm.
Thought-provoking question.
Did she just ask me that? Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I think it doesn't just settle on the education field. It has to do with just community, period. Whether you're talking about parents, you're talking about the school in general, you're talking about the kids in general. So, we're supposed to all come together as a whole to try to lead our children into the future to be our leaders. And I think that in the past there's been more I would say structure in homes, and there's not a lot of structure today. A lot of kids that I see come from homes that are not structured, whether they have young parents or they're living with a relative, or they're living with a foster parent or what have you, and they haven't had that stability all their life, and so they don't necessarily deal with authority very well, and so we have a lot of issues with that. But I think that between when I was a kid, I knew that there were certain things I couldn't do and I shouldn't do when I was in the school system as opposed to being home. And the kids today, they don't necessarily value that as much. When it comes to authority figures, whether it be their parents or just us in general. So I think there are a lot of differences.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying it's just not the education, the institutes of learning itself, but more of a structural, societal.
I think it's a community.
Oh, okay.
I strongly believe in it takes a village, and I don't believe at this time in my teaching career that the village is sound. So I think that I think the teachers are given a lot. I think the parents are relying on us more and more and more. And I think that's that might be a mistake along the way. And so, it I think there's a breakdown in the community itself. That's what I think.
So given your career history and how long you've been a teacher, how would you compare private and public schools in your experience?
I've never taught private schools. I've done a little research along the years, and I've had a lot of colleagues that I've worked with that have moved to private school, and they've shared their experiences with me. And there's not much a difference. I think the big difference is the money. You have to pay more for private schools, but I think the same things that go on in public schools, go on in private schools. Whether it's bad behavior or things that as a community we're worried about in our schools. I think that goes on in both societies or both communities, whether it be public or private. And I think sometimes, as people, we think that the word private, if we send them to a private school, then they're going to be absolutely okay. They're not going to be influenced by any negativity. They're going to get the best education possible. And sometimes that can be the case, but sometimes it can also isolate. It can also basically take the problem to another level. As in, I'm in a private school. Why am I not in a public school? I'm in a private school. I get, my parents pay all this money, so I should be able to do whatever I want to do. So there's different perspectives when we look at it, but when kids look at it, they can have different perspectives too, as far as what they can do and what they can't do.
Okay. So this may be a loaded question, and I just really want your insight on it. If there was one thing in 10 words or less you could change about your profession, what would it be?
I'll give it to you in one word. Testing.
I'm afraid to go there because I know that is another interview, and I would love, for the sake of time and to respect your time, I would love to be able to interview you offline or at another time on just standardized testing. We hear a lot, so it would be great to hear the perspective from a teacher with your history and your tenure in the school system. It would be great to hear that from you. Are you okay? Is it okay if we proceed?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I've witnessed some teachers leave schools, not knowing why. How do you feel about that?
Teachers leaving schools?
Teachers leaving the profession for other things.
I think if you think about the history of teachers, I would say, 20, 30 years ago, teachers, they stay in their profession until they retire. All the way through their 30 years, plus years. I think currently, teachers are rapidly leaving the system for various reasons. Pay, for lack of structure, depending on the school that they go to or the area that they, decide to reside in and, become a teacher. So I think there are various reasons why they leave the profession, but I think, in the past they would have stayed. Now, I think it's all about the money.
Wow.
Teachers don't make that much money, and the amount of work that we put in versus the amount that you give and take, I don't think that it equals out. And so, there's been a lot of freezes in a lot of different states on income in the last few years as far as, the levels of how we're paid. And, as you move up, you're supposed to get paid more. And a lot of states have frozen that in the last years. They've let that go, but the increase in the percentage of what they pay you has not been, has not equaled out to what they've missed out on in the years that they didn't receive that pay. So I think at number one, I would say it's all about the money. And then I would also say it's all about the structure, because new teachers coming in now, I don't feel like they necessarily get what they may need in college. And then when they step in the classroom that first day and go that first year, it's kind of a huge wake-up call to them. And they say, you know what, it's not worth the money, what I'm having to deal with, because I put in overtime every day, all day, and I reap the benefits from seeing my kids prosper, but I don't reap the benefits when it comes to monetary things, and money. So I'm a mentor right now of a new teacher, and she's been frustrated a lot throughout the year, and I've had to constantly just let her know that, sometimes that first year it's a doozy, and depending on the kids that you get too, it can be even more stressful. And she's had a load this year, but she's trucked on through. And I feel like she's done very well. But whether or not she stays with that by the end of the year, I don't know. So I think that has a lot to do with it, depending on where you end up.
That is very insightful, and more surprisingly, you answered my next few questions. It's evident from what I heard you say is that you feel some new teachers coming into the Education Institute don't necessarily get everything they need from college, if I heard you correct.
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. So do you think you got everything you needed through college to be an efficient teacher?
I think that I got a lot of tutorials to kind of bridge me into the education field. To say, okay, this is what you should expect, or the important things to look out for. But I don't think when it comes to the like those minute things, actually they're not minute. I say minute because they weren't taught to us in college. So when it comes to dealing with behavior, when you've got to call 10 parents because they're out of control, and you don't get taught that stuff in college. You get taught the basics of, what can you do to advance your kids? What can you do to take the low kids and move them to the high kids, and, move them up a level when you've got kids that are not on grade level, and, you get all the I would say the political aspect of it. And so that's what, when you step into the school system, they want you to know those specific things, because when you step into an interview, they want to know, okay, so if you've got a kid in your classroom and the parent calls and, blah, 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 what are you going to say? What are you going to do? That's what they ask you when you're in an interview. When you're actually in that situation by yourself and you're talking to that parent, and, in those situations, you're by yourself. You don't have any help. So, those are things you have to experience on your own. You have to go through the good times and the bad times, and, figure out the ups and downs and your mistakes and what you would do better the next time. And so, I feel like that our education system prepared me a lot, in that it built me up and made me feel like, hey, you know what, I can go out there and I can do this. I'm ready. But at the same time, when I got in there, it was like, okay, what do I do with this? They didn't teach me that. What do I do with that? We didn't go over that, So, there's, as in any job field, you have to figure out, how are you going to progress? These are things that I haven't been taught, so I have to use my brain, and I have to use my past experience, and I have to use my resources to figure out, how am I going to handle this?
Wow. Very insightful. Thank you for that. So that's it for the questions I had, and we can go on and on. Your career field is amazing, and I had to restrain myself from asking you more questions, because again, we want to respect your time. I find your career field noteworthy, and I know it takes a very special person to become a teacher. let alone a middle school teacher in public school. And after everything you told me, it makes it even more profound and noteworthy. I always think of a quote by Henry Adams when I think of teachers. The quote goes, "A teacher affects eternity. He, she, can never tell where his influence stops."
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you would like for us to know, to just bring awareness to your field? I know this is
No, that's a pretty deep quote, and over the years, I walk into my job every single day, and I have to, it's kind of like I have to, no matter what type of day I'm having, I have to program myself to say, I have kids that are walking in my lives every single day. I see their faces, and some of them, they're looking for me to smile. Some days I don't feel like smiling. And some of them, just one thing that you do can affect the rest of their day, can affect the rest of their week, can affect the rest of their semester, can affect the rest of their life. I've had a lot of teachers in my life that have done that for me. So I have a lot of respect for a lot of the teachers. I mean, I can give you a name for every single grade level because I had that. Not all teachers have that. So my goal and I feel like is to make sure that no matter what, out of my 100 kids that I have, obviously I want it to be more than one. But if one walks out, and I'm teaching 8th grade right now, and so my goal is when they promote, we can't say graduation for 8th grade. So when they're promoted, if one kid, at least one kid is able to say, man, she touched my life. You know what I'm saying? Or she, on that day when I was just super sad and I just didn't know what to do, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're able to say, hey, like, Miss Melanish was like, she was there. Like, that was her. Like, I'm good. 19 years, 20 years next year, and I'm just like, you know what? Yep. That's all I need. That keeps me going.
That is deep, and I see your passion. I really do, and I can assure you that you've made every teacher proud, and you're a reflection of everything they've instilled in you. Again, I want to thank you for your time. Is it okay if I contact you for further questions?
Yes.
So what's going to happen with this information is we have a paper that's due to our professor, and I'll be more than happy to share the paper with you if I could get your email address or your telephone number to contact you, and I'll share the paper with you, and I'm sure that this is some great information that'll bring a heightened awareness, enlightenment, and appreciation for your profession. Again, thank you, Miss Tawana.
That'll work. Thank you.
Thank you.